Happy Wednesday, guys.
Yeah, hello, guys.
Welcome.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining
us. Sorry we were a little bit late today, but we are here Wednesday. Welcome to the Saratoga podcast. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We have lots of stuff to talk about today, and we have a guest joining us in a moment who is going to cover a few things that have been happening in City Hall that have been of interest to some of our viewers. But before we do that, how have you both been? How's the week been?
Starting the new year off, January's been a bust for skiers. I feel bad for the ski resorts. They got a little bit of snow finally, but still, I've been enjoying it personally, having mild weather, limited. But after the holidays, we're already a week, 10 days into 2024. Holy cow, time is flying.
I know.
Yeah, I'm missing again. I'm being one of those skiers. This is killing me. I want snow. I love playing in the snow. I love skiing in the snow. I want my 4 months of winter. Darn it, and it doesn't look like I'm going to get it. But boy, Robin, you said it. There is a lot to talk about. This last city council seems to be the city council that just keeps giving material for us to talk about, right? Because we got another doozy in the works here.
We do. There's been a bit of a controversy around an on-call pay issue that we're going to get into in just a moment with our guest John Kaufman. But I know that he wanted to talk about one of the other things he's covered that had to do with a lawsuit settlement being paid to an individual who had sued the city. So why don't we bring him in? Mr. Kaufman, are you here?
I am. Boy, I got weird light here, but
you do have some weird light. You look very dramatic. It looks like we're almost trying to do like a secret interview with obscure the face a little bit.
Yeah, well, I would benefit from that, I think. But
no.
So maybe put the blind on. So the first issue I wanted to go into is the city had been sued by the Republican chairman, Mike Brandy, over its flagrant violation of the open meetings law. I mean, this has been going on for months. And the previous council did acknowledge that there was a problem, but classically, they didn't do anything about it. So Mike successfully sued the city. And a judge ordered that the city not only provide the documents to him, but also pay his legal expenses, which were $2,500.
Now, John, you said he sued for open meetings law. Is that correct, or was it FOIL, or was it both?
Actually, it was both. It was both. They transacted business using email instead of a public forum, and that was a clear violation of open meetings law. You're not allowed to do that. All the city business transactions must be done in a public setting. And then there were documents apparently that he didn't get within the time frames. So Safford moved that they pay this. And interestingly, when he did so, he's a very non-confrontational guy. He just asked that they pay the settlement as required by the court. And before they could go to a vote, Dylan Moran started asking, well, who's going to benefit from this? As though he didn't know. And Safford explained to him, to Mike Brandy, and then Dylan asked, isn't he the chair of the Republican Party? To just emphasize it a little bit more. And Safford said yes. And then, surprisingly, everybody voted yes except him. He voted no. And he took an oath when he became commissioner to abide by the law. And it really shouldn't make any difference. When the court orders you to pay, it shouldn't make any difference if it's a Republican or Democrat or Black Lives Matter or whatever. You must pay. And it's extremely disturbing that he voted no, especially because he's head of risk and he's over risk and safety. And that job requires one to be meticulously careful about meeting all the requirements, both in terms of insurance and the feds and everybody else. So that was pretty troubling. And that's that issue. I don't know if you guys want to comment or not.
Well, my thought why Dylan's vote was symbolic because there was already 4 yeses.
Right.
My bigger concern is the lack of transparency from City Hall. Now, this would have been under Mayor Kim's administration, right? These FOIL requests, and it was his office that was required to give these. And another issue I have, and I bring up a lot, is with our media. Chris Churchill, when they gave Ron Kim an endorsement, mentioned that he's going to be looking for open government and making sure they're transparent. I mean, this is, and you can't, like we see with Donald Trump, you can tell all the lies you want, but the courts play with truth, right? And so when a court says, listen, what we did not, as a city council, as a mayor, distribute documents as required by law. I have a big issue with that, and that's something I see very troubling of this previous administration.
This is a continuation. Oh, sorry, Robin.
No, go ahead.
This is a continuation, and John, going back to you, I think had some foils. Either they refuse to give them, or they literally are too overworked and they can't get to them. I don't know which one it is, but the law is so crystal clear on it. There's specific timelines, and when it gets to the lawsuit level, you missed it by months, right? By the time it finally gets to a lawsuit, this wasn't like, well, they were 5 days overdue. Right. And the city's known about this. We heard them talking about it last year. They need to address this. Again, the judge has it within his powers to award attorney fees. In this case, he did not award all the attorney's fees. I think they asked for almost $7,000, and the court said, yeah, you're going to get some attorney's fees here, but we're going to knock it down somewhat. But either way, that's costing city taxpayers money. So what they need to do is find a way, either transfer some staff to help with the foils, hire back some retirees, get a vendor, something to address this, so we're not paying money to citizens asking for FOIL requests and not getting them for a matter of months. This is not the first time this has happened.
So I just want to sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say also, Robin McPhee, who is the person who handles FOIL requests, is just an outstanding city employee. I just want to make the note that the problem is not with her. I know she works very hard on this stuff, and she's as responsive as she can be. I just think they need more resources.
I just want to say that I actually feel very personally affected by this issue, because I know, having gone through the last 2 years under Mayor Kim, that people who are putting in, and I just want to, for our viewers, in case people don't understand, anyone can put in a freedom of information request asking about things that have been emailed about, discussed, anything having to do with city information that our public officials have communicated about. You can put in a FOIL request saying, I would like any emails or documents with this keyword in them or this keyword in them. And it's a way that we keep our public officials accountable and make sure that they're not doing anything, below board. And I know, because I've spoken to so many people about this, that when there were FOIL requests that were going to produce results that were politically helpful for Mayor Kim, he would make sure those FOIL results were expedited and that those FOIL results were given to whoever requested them in a very short period of time. However, when there were results that he knew would be unfavorable towards him politically, those FOIL results weren't received or received many months after the fact. And so he really weaponized a tool that is meant to be here to help the public trust and to help transparency and to really help our government, even on this local level, function in a fair and honest way. And I think it's just despicable. And when this lawsuit in particular has been brought up, I know a lot of the kind of grumbling has been, oh, well, there have been so many FOIL requests put in that they blame the public for putting in too many requests and overburdening their system, rather than taking a look at themselves and how their office had been responding. And so I just think blaming the public is all wrong for putting in too many requests. And I'm kind of like, maybe there's a correlation here to people putting in freedom of information requests and how you're conducting city business. Maybe if people didn't perceive that you were trying to bury things, they wouldn't be putting in so many requests. I mean, that to me is like a logical conclusion, but I just thought it was disgusting. And again, really felt the effects personally of how he weaponized that tool.
At last week's city council meeting during public comment, do you recall somebody stepped up to the microphone and said, I had a FOIL request. I didn't even get the 5-day notice. I got nothing, and this was put in months ago. So this has been taking this person at his word. I don't know who it was, and I have no reason to disbelieve him. This is an ongoing problem.
Yeah, absolutely. So now the other thing we wanted to talk about, unless anyone has any other comments on the foil. No? Okay. So the other thing we wanted to talk about that I want to make sure we kind of set up for our viewers so they understand what we're talking about here. All the commissioners and the mayor have a deputy mayor, deputy public safety commissioner. They all have a deputy. And the deputies are really there to handle the day-to-day running of the departments. And the way the charter describes the jobs of our elected officials versus our deputies is that the elected officials are written into the charter as part-time jobs. The deputies are written in as full-time jobs. And as a result, they're compensated at a much higher rate than our elected officials. Currently, our mayors and commissioners all make $14,500. That number hasn't changed in quite some time. The deputies, however, have seen a real increase in how much they've been paid, especially over the last couple of years. And I just want to kind of point this out in 2012, if you go back to 2012, so almost like 10 years ago, they were making $66,000. It crept up. In 2021, they were making $77,000. And then this last administration put forward a pay raise for the deputies that brought their base salary up to $94,000. Plus, there were a lot of benefits for continuing education. There was just a lot of things kind of added on there. And so all in all, their total compensation package is about $100,000 for the deputies. And at the time, a lot of us had a problem that these 5 kind of political appointees were getting this pretty hefty pay raise, and that the union employees weren't seeing that, we felt should be distributed to other employees in City Hall before it was given to political appointees. So they got a lot of pushback for that. But now we have an issue that was raised on John's blog, SaratogaSpringsPolitics.com, that makes this an even kind of more flagrant situation in terms of compensation. And that is how they were compensated. We're just finding out now for something that's being described as on-call pay. And John, perhaps you can kind of take it from here and describe what happened.
Okay. Well, let me just start off by just saying that I've been doing this blog for 7 years, and two posts have gone extremely viral. One of them was on Montenegro forcing out Lieutenant Emanation, and the other one is this. I've had, as of now, I've had over 2,000 people view this. Okay. It's an important issue. So the issue is they passed, maybe could you put up the resolution?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see.
So the same resolution that gave them all the raises and other benefits.
John, real quick, they was the 2001 to 2003 city council, correct?
Yes or no? Is that the wrong one?
That's the wrong one.
That's the wrong page. It's a little.
Here it is.
There it is. Okay, people maybe not be able to see. It's a little on the small side, but this is the poorly worded, brief excerpt from the bigger resolution that provided all the raises. And in it says that the deputies will get on-call pay to address emergencies if appropriate. Right. And it also explicitly says that the stuff that's underlined there is that they will not be paid for any additional time that they actually do whatever prompted the emergency. Okay, so that's what that's about. The history of this really is that Commissioner Golub wanted to do something about Joe O'Neill's situation. Joe O'Neill is the deputy Public Works Commissioner. And for your viewers and people living in the city, Joe has your back. He is the guy that is responsible every day. Is if there is an emergency, he has to mobilize the resources to address it. So if a water main breaks on your street at 1 o'clock in the morning and it's flooding your basement, Joe O'Neill is the person who has to get out there and organize people to address it. And so Golub felt that he really needed to be paid for that, being on call for doing that, because he frequently had to respond. I don't want to go too much in the weeds, but the only other place with on call is in the IT department of the city. And when Michelle Madigan was commissioner and was responsible for IT, she recognized that they needed to come in at night if there was an emergency to make sure that the city's website and other computer systems that support everything are always up and running. Okay, and they are paid an additional $76 a week if they're the one on call, and there are 3 people in that office and they rotate it. Okay, so those are the 2 areas in terms of being on call in this city. Let me just look at my notes here.
Well, I just want to say really quick, because some would argue that like in 2024, we all have cell phones. We're all kind of like on call in a way, in that like we're going to respond, to some emergency 24/7. But when you are describing that and you're saying there's 3 people who rotate being on call, I mean, you're truly meaning like have the phone next to them, aren't going to go out and have a drink that night. Like they're really like, at the ready.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about what on-call is.
Yeah.
I mean, on-call normally, and I'm a computer guy, on-call normally is that you limit your personal activity to be constantly available and ready to act. All right. Yeah. That means you can't drink. Okay. You can't go into a place that's out of cell range. You need to be available. Now, so what happened is the resolution didn't go through any of that. And at the time, Manita Sanghvi told the council that she would report to them on a quarterly basis as to what was going on with this program in terms of evaluating it, and also that she would set parameters for it, which it definitely needed. The
on-call situation in particular?
Yeah, yep. And in passing this, okay. Regrettably, she didn't do any of this. Now, and what happened was that the deputy mayor in November, following the election, went back. Now, excuse me. This was supposed to be done quarterly, according to the language of the resolution. Supposed to do it. It was supposed to be paid quarterly.
Meaning you would put in for your on-call pay every quarter.
That's right. Okay. So in the case of Angela Rella, what she did after Tim lost the election on November 11th, the election was on the 7th, but on the 11th, she put in 3 sheets that basically said that, and maybe you could put it up. Have you got the Angela Rella one there?
I believe I do. Is that where
that's the Connors one. There's another one. There it is. Okay, so this is what she put in. Now, look. First of all, look at this form. The middle column says reason. Okay, I'm not exactly sure what that meant. It's never defined in here. But in her case, she didn't bother to put anything in there. She just repeated.
This is for Heather Crocker, though.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Well, this is what Angela Rella's sheets look like as well.
Name Stacey Connors. I think I only have those 2.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but Angela Rella and Crocker put in the same kind of response, which is without offering any reason. And according to Rella, she was on call 24/7 for the entire year, basically.
So wait, just so it says see above reason for all dates, and I'm not seeing a reason. So I'm just seeing a description. So is this description meant to be the reason she was available?
I leave it to your viewers to try and interpret it. I don't know. And in fact, I wrote to Commissioner Sanghvi asking if she would explain this. And classically, her first response was to refer me to HR. And this has nothing to do with HR. So I wrote her back again. Will you please explain how to read this form and what this is about? And I was ghosted. She did not respond. But but the point is I don't understand what the mayor or the accounts or the finance office has in the way of emergencies after hours. I don't get it, and it was severely abused. If we take a look at the other form, let me just. So on this form, this was submitted by Stacy Connors. Your viewers may or may not be able to read these, but the reason for her on call on this includes attending the state of the city meeting and going to a wake.
Hey, at least you put in reasons.
That was, you did put in reasons. And I understand indirectly from that Moran claims that she works 60 hours a week, and he saw this as a way to compensate her for additional time. And this is part of the problem of the manner by which Commissioner Moran approaches these things. He cannot decide that he's going to use money from one pot of money, which is clearly defined, and pay for something else. The on-call is not about overtime. It's not about overtime. It's about being on call. And as you can see, basically, this was abused. Let me look at my notes here.
I want to jump in for a minute. Of saying this, the issues here are really there's far-reaching ramifications with these on call. With this appears just to be grift, right? That yes. They're just putting in for this money. That this is not the intention. And what now happens when the unions have to go in and negotiate their contracts? They're going to have the city over a barrel because of how this is abused. Or you have the head of the civil service who's got to work who put in for a part-time kind of assistant to come in on Saturdays to proctor tests on Saturdays, so she didn't have to come in on Saturdays, and they turned that down. And so you have these examples of employees who are going to be affected, who see this money grab going on, and they're going to be upset, and rightfully so. And the bigger issue I have is that, from a business standpoint, if you come in, the city's running great, taxes are stable, these little things can slide. But the problem is that this last city council came in, continues to raise taxes, continues to look for other revenue sources, and then continues to misuse our money. And so you can't justify any of this based on how the city is acting right now and how it's performing. And so that those are the issues I have. Not that I don't think some of these deputies are worth it, but this is not the process of how this happens.
Yeah. And if I could add, John, when I first started reading this, and you all know that I cut my teeth not only in public service, but leading unions for public service. So I sort of had my back up a little bit for a minute, John. I'm like, oh, John, and I gotta tease you here a little bit, John. This isn't civility, John. 2024 is the year of civility.
Guilty.
I read this, and the deeper I got into it, first of all, excellent work on your part, and I was appalled. You laid it out. Like you said, these weren't, in some cases, these weren't emergencies. Although I will say there was at least one or two legitimate emergencies on that list, but the rest of them did not appear to be emergencies. And the oversight wasn't there. You pointed that out, that the commissioners were signing off when it didn't follow it. So there should have been a layer of checks and balances, and that was just blown through. So this is good. And to Adam's point, this goes back to the FOIL thing. We need a functioning city government that doesn't have dysfunction, that doesn't have ineptitude. And to the new council members, they're new at this. They weren't part of this, but guess what? This whole 5-member council is now tasked with fixing this. I don't care who caused it. You need to fix this. And I'm not against, someone else just mentioned here, obviously these people should be compensated fairly and properly, but they are executive level people, and other areas of government, executive level don't get on-call pay. What they should get is a fair salary, incorporating the on-call aspects of it, perhaps. And whether or not that salary is fair or not, we can get to on another day. But this needs to be fixed. They need to acknowledge what they did wrong and then fix it.
Guys, I'm gonna throw up a quick comment from former commissioner, now current supervisor, Michelle Madigan. She's been pretty vocal on this issue, and she says on-call pay has basically become weekly pay for being an appointed deputy. Next year, you bet we will see all 5 deputies claim on-call pay for about $6,500 each. The city taxpayers will be on the hook for this pay and the retirement benefit that goes along with this extra pay. Make no mistake, every single union employee will not ask for on-call pay during upcoming contract negotiations. And then, sorry, one more.
I think she means they will ask. I think she had a nod
will.
in there. It seems like a typo.
Yeah. And then they receive significant raises at the same time the council put forward the on-call pay. On-call pay needs to go. Yes, and she did. She meant will ask. I agree. I agree with everything we're saying here. I also just like one of the things that seemed really like damning to me, and correct me if I read this incorrectly, but so this was supposed to be put in for quarterly, right? And to me, for example, with Angela Rella, who was the deputy mayor, she didn't ask for any of this quarterly. And then after the elections were over and she realized she wasn't going to be back as the deputy mayor anymore, Mayor Kim wasn't going to be there as the mayor anymore, all of a sudden she submitted her form for the entire past year. Is that correct?
Yes.
And she submitted on something like December 24th?
Well, she submitted 3 on November 11th, which was 4 days after the election for the first 3 quarters. And then on December 27th, she put in for the last quarter.
Was there anything in this resolution
wait, hold on,
really quick,
Adam, really quick. That to me right there, waiting until the election is over and then asking for all of this, to me, is such a consciousness of guilt. Like, you know that this is politically the wrong thing. Like, you know this isn't going to look good. You know this is hinky. So you're not going to do it if there's a chance Ron is going to be the mayor next year and you're still going to be here. But you're not going to be there anymore, so you don't care. You just want to take your money. I mean, to me, that is like that really shows their hand right there. I mean, am I like kind of overthinking that? It just seems to me it's more than a coincidence that they asked for all this,
yeah.
you know.
You make a valid point, and I don't want to attack any one individual in these because I haven't gone in as deep as John. But it appears Miss Rowland never took a week vacation, or if she did take vacation, she had her phone on the beach. Am I correct in that assumption, John? I don't know.
Again, the thing is so poorly defined, and also it's a black box. I mean, they always go on transparent. I don't know.
Is there anything in this resolution about being retroactive, right? So like when you get a pay raise, you don't get a pay raise and, hey, we'll go back and give you the money for the year. I mean, was this resolution?
Well, that's another issue. And that is the resolution said that it would take effect on February 9th when it was done. But she and Connors, if you look back at the Connors one, and Angela's, it says the same thing. They put in for the month of January and the first week in February, in spite of the fact that it was supposed to go into effect February 9th.
Yeah.
And I assume that Sangvi paid it.
And that's where the deputy should have caught it, right? Because
Right.
they're the ones passing the resolution. Wait a minute. Hold on here. This is only in effect from February 9th. So, their signatures are on these.
You know what else I think is really interesting, you guys? I would actually argue that one of the departments that, you do have to kind of be on call, even not officially on call, John, as you described earlier, but one of the departments that does have things pop after business hours quite a bit is public safety. I mean, like, whether it was an accident or a crime or something that happened late at night, there were a lot
shootout.
Yes, a shootout. Oh God. Yeah. Let's not even say it. But yeah, there was a lot of things that happened in terms of public safety, not Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. But what I think is really interesting, and we know that, right? We know that. But Jason Titu, the deputy public safety commissioner, didn't submit for any of this on-call pay, did he?
No, he didn't. Nope, he didn't. He didn't exploit it.
And
I reached out to Jason, just for a comment on this, because I agree with you, Robin. I think public works and public safety, there is something there, right? Those are there's no accounting emergency at 2 a.m. that I guess technically IT falls under the finance department, but that aside, right? Anything can wait till Monday morning and open a business. But Jason Titu didn't put in, and I said, Jason, why did you not put in when all the other deputies did? And he honestly said he saw this for the circumstances that the deputies had to come in off hours to handle pending crisis or full-blown emergencies. So he essentially said there has to be a crisis or a full-blown emergency for me to put in for this, and it didn't happen. And so hats off, because at the end of the day, for $6,500, I think this will follow. Angela Rello, who has run for office before, who maybe had a political, prospect in the city now, this is going to be a real black mark, this kind of money grab for $6,500. So, Robin, you're exactly right. Hats off to former Commissioner of Public Safety Titu for not, abusing the system.
Yeah,
Robin
right?
commended Jason Titu. Woo-hoo.
I know.
Yeah, well, I would just say, though, that I think there's an argument to be made that the police department, the fire department are really designed to deal with emergencies. I mean, that's what
the
they.
thing. So that's the thing, is that they're used to it. Everyone in public safety is used to it. So, we had COVID happening, and that could be described as one lengthy emergency.
Right.
And there was never a moment when my deputy Eileen Finneran was like complaining that she was working too many hours and needed some kind of on-call provision. I mean, that no one was in that mindset, because public safety just, what the deal is, and you have to grind it out sometimes. And that's what we did. But also, I think that most reasonable people would look at the compensation that they were receiving at a base salary of $94,000 and not complain and not be so greedy as to want to exploit this on-call pay provision and put in for thousands of extra dollars. I just find it so distasteful. And it's like, people, I understand they're political appointees, but this is all should be in the spirit of public service. And clearly these people don't understand the definition of public service, because if they did, they would not be this greedy and keep sticking their hands in the honeypot.
And to be clear, and I think we said this, but I just want to be clear, on-call pay is a legitimate way to properly compensate people who can't go out and have a drink, have to have the phone next to them. It's just the way, usually it's for the union level employees, not the management employees. And I'm not saying it's not justified here, but this just was not well thought out, not well researched, and certainly not well followed up on. Robin, can you put up that piece that I sent you, that PDF? This is, I spent 10 years executive director and counsel of a state level police union, both the troopers before that, but also another state level police union. And I pulled up their on-call pay. And first of all, you'll see on here that it says, and the underlines and highlights are mine, I added these, people who are eligible for overtime compensation under the definition contained in the Fair Labor Standard Act. Again, these employees, and I'm not saying I'm against it, but first and foremost, maybe that should be incorporated into their salary, just not be an extra pay issue. But my whole point bringing this up here is it's a couple of long paragraphs that is well thought out. It needs the approval of the director of budget. It establishes just what on-call pay is. As John, that was one of your points. It doesn't really establish it. So there's different ways to do that. This was not well done. This was mismanagement.
And I just have to say, maybe Commissioner Songvi didn't report on it quarterly because no one was putting in for it quarterly. It seems like there wasn't anything to manage until the very last quarter of 2023, when there was this flurry of activity.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I have to point the finger really at Commissioners Sangvi and Moran. I don't think a lot of people understand fully our form of government. And Michelle Madigan did a fantastic job for 10 years. And she was a person who, she and her deputy, Lynn Bachner, and her other deputies, they scrutinized all the stuff coming in. And there were a lot of things that they wrote that they said no to. Okay. You can't spend money this way. And it just seems to me that it really is troubling that Sangvi, who signed these things, or her staff received this stuff, didn't catch it. That is extremely troubling. And honestly, to your viewers, this didn't happen under Michelle Madigan. If they had submitted stuff on Michelle Madigan, it would not have sailed. So there was a breakdown there. And the other issue is, and I find this scary, and I know I have been criticizing Commissioner Moran quite a bit, granted, but risk and safety requires a meticulous approach to making sure everything is covered. And you can't play, fast and loose with this stuff. Moran claiming that he could use this money to pay his employee because she works many hours is just improper. It's simply improper. That is not the basis of doing it. And finally, and the other thing that is frustrating to me is I understand why these commissioners don't want to respond to my emails, but for your reader's background, I'm not constantly writing these people. Okay, I don't. I occasionally write them when I ask for clarifications about these issues. I thought it was perfectly reasonable to ask Manita Sanghvi if she could explain the problems with this program. And what I got is silence. And I understand from another source that she told someone, hey, this was passed by the council and she's just implementing it. And no acknowledgement that there was a serious problem here.
Yeah.
Well, I think I think we all kind of agree that this is a problem that needs to be dealt with and it needs to be addressed. And it just seemed like a stupid one last stupid self-imposed mistake by the prior administration out the door.
Yeah, I'd like to just say one more thing, and that is that I'm really optimistic about the new members of our council. And I really feel optimistic that they will address this issue, and that this kind of activity will have some voices that the council will finally speak up and say, no, you can't do this. I'm feeling good about the future of the city on this stuff.
You guys, I just have to say one thing. I understand your emphasis on Commissioner Moran and the risk and safety portion of this. But at the end of the day, it was all 5 people that passed this, correct? So yes. I hold all of the council members that are still on the council responsible equally, in my opinion, because they all passed this. None of them, it doesn't appear as if anyone has followed up on this. And when you agree to something and you pass it, yes, some of the responsibilities may fall more to one person's department than the other. Some people in some department might take advantage of it, some might not. But it's still on everyone to hold everyone else accountable for the things they voted for. And it seems like there's been deafening silence on this issue. So I would assert that Commissioner Moran, Commissioner Sanghvi, and Commissioner Golub all need to speak on this issue and address it to build back a little public trust.
I agree. I agree fully.
But I think the new mayor and new Commissioner Cole, they're in office now. There's a problem. They're aware of it. They got to be part of the solution as well. They may not have been responsible for it, but they need to be part of the solution to solve it.
And I just have to say, I don't think the solution is letting this on-call pay continue, and then we're going into union negotiations and somehow matching it with you. Like, I don't think the solution is just continuing to give more money to one group, matching it with the other group because you haven't done it, and it just kind of like escalates and escalates. I think that as a taxpayer, we've seen a lot of spending over the last 2 years, and I would like to see a little bit more fiscal responsibility. And that is not to say that I don't think employees in City Hall should be compensated more, don't have a great contract now. I mean, I could go on and on about all the people in City Hall I think deserve more money. Conversation for another day. It just feels like sometimes this is settled politically by just continuing to give out money as
and
opposed
raising
to
taxes, right? We all have budgets we have to balance, and but the idea that we're budgeting our balance by continually just to raise taxes that's how these self-imposed mistakes. We'll just raise taxes again and again and again. Sooner or later, this is not a formula that's going to work for our city. And so you're right. We need fiscal responsibility.
Yeah,
yep.
I completely agree.
I would just actually one more thing, and that is a frustration with the media. I sent on this information to the Daily Gazette. I didn't bother the Times Union. I mean, given Wendy's history, I have to admit I didn't bother. But I sent it to the Daily Gazette. I sent it to all the TV stations, sent it to radio stations. I sent it, and nothing.
Wait, John, you didn't. Come on, Saratoga Report published it.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, and I think there's a chance that, and I'm up on Saratoga today. Okay, but I'm just frustrated that this doesn't get more, because in the end, a lot of these politicians just feel like, oh, that's on a blog somewhere, I don't have to care about that. And it's really when the mainstream media starts writing about this that it really gets their attention.
Well, the TU was slow to print the story on Mike Brandy's foil win, but they did, as recently as last week, even though the information was a few weeks old, they did print a story on that, so at least there was something there.
Yeah, but the TU, I remember the TU when Mayor Kim was on video, swearing at Commissioner Montanino. The TU, before the video was out, ran Randy Libitar, that hack from the Times Union, ran an apology story before the story was even a story. So the idea that they're slow to move is nonsense. They're
not slow to move. They would be. I mean, Wendy Libitar, who, just to clarify, is the reporter who typically covers Saratoga Springs for the Times Union. She typically gets her stories, I think, directly from the horse's mouth, aka Ron Kim, that whole crowd. That's really where she gets all her information funneled from and what she decides to pounce on. Had this been a Republican who had done this, had this been someone who, wasn't in their political cabal, they would be all over this. They would be all there. I mean, we know this. Right. It is really upsetting, but I also think it's the reason why podcasts and blogs, et cetera, in Saratoga Springs are so important. We have to keep doing this stuff, even, if the Times Union doesn't care to cover it. It's our city, it's our town. These are our elected officials, and we have to hold them accountable in one way or another.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for having me on, as always. I'm a big fan of this show and of Dan's Saratoga
Report.
Yeah, but what is that? It's aggregate. What do you call it?
It's a news aggregator. Yes,
news aggregate. Yeah, it's
a great news aggregator. Call it a blog, and it's not a blog.
If you don't currently, I get it, and it's first thing I look at in the morning. So I would just urge people who watch this. It's a major resource, and we're desperate for local news so we can be good citizens, and that's a major resource. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
So everyone, for more details, you can go to SaratogaSpringsPolitics.com. Thank you so much, Don. We really appreciate it. Bye-bye. More details, SaratogaSpringsPolitics.com. And of course, Saratoga Report by our own Dan DiFederici. Thank you. So guys, that was a lot. It's a lot, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm glad we're doing this.
Me too.
Yeah, for the people who know about this and know what's happening, I think it just rubs a lot of people the wrong way. Just that it just feels not above water. Feels kind of a cash grab out the door for taxpayer money. And I'm glad, again, the mainstream media may or may not cover it, but certainly it's worth talking about.
And one quick last point for me, I don't want to overplay this either. Is there a little scandalous element to it? Yeah, but is it a scandal? No, I think it's more mismanagement. And this maybe there's no difference to some people, but I just don't want to overhype this. But I'm glad we properly shown a spotlight on it. And it was John Kaufman, the one that really brought it up.
That's true, right? If they didn't, I think it would be if the forms were not submitted, then it would be much serious. You're right, much more of a scandal. I mean, the way they did go about it was above water, but they, just
not really though. I'm sorry. I'm looking at these forms. I'm looking at Angela Rella's form, specifically right here on John Kaufman's blog. I mean, she's got days, and she really puts in for basically the entire year, right? And there's not a single explanation. The reasons thing is blank for every single weekend that she's put in for. So
it feels a little bit like a money grab to some degree.
It does. It's hard to not look at it that way. And even, and I appreciate at least that that some folks put in reasons, but there's special events.
I
What?
don't know. I'm just the reason I'm going to the state of the city. Like I don't know what's worse.
No,
You know,
that's
put
what
me-
I'm saying. Like, I appreciate the effort that there was at least reasons put in by Stacey Connors, but at the same time, it's like there's special events every freaking weekend. So I mean, you're basically
Not an emergency. That's not an
Yeah.
emergency. She
I
did
feel
have one
that.
or two emergencies on there. I did see, so probably legitimately there, but others
Yeah,
were
like
not
a snow
emergencies.
emergency. Yeah, there's no way you would have known that was coming.
I-
But the state,
a
state
spill.
I still blame the commissioners for signing off on that as well.
Yeah.
In some cases, the person may not know. Maybe they should have known. But when I was a sergeant in the state police, I had to approve overtime, and I'd look at the form, and occasionally kick it back to the guy. That's not overtime. You're not overtime eligible for that. In some cases, they were gaming the system. In some cases, it was just an honest mistake. So I don't know where it goes.
Say too, like, I do not think it's a good thing for us as a city to continue to widen the gap between what our elected officials are being paid and what our political appointees are being paid. Because at the end of the day, the only people we're allowed to vote for are the elected officials. And so I just think it kind of just sets up this weird dynamic where really people are gunning for these deputy positions more than they are the elected official positions, because there's not a lot of jobs in town where you're going to make $100,000.
Hey, we've got a new city council meeting next week, right? And
Yes, we do.
we didn't talk too much about the last one, which went very smoothly, very quickly, without any controversy. We won't see, that will change at some point, whether it's the next meeting or the meeting after that. I'm expecting some more, some rough roads at times anyway, at some point. I commend Mayor Safford for leading a good meeting. I hope I'm wrong. I hope it goes that way the whole year, but this Saratoga being Saratoga, I don't see that being the case.
You know what struck me so much about how Mayor Safford was leading that meeting, and I think kind of his secret sauce a little bit, is that he is just the way he handles himself, the way he speaks, what he's saying. To me, it strikes me as so sincere, and that he's really listening. He's really trying to be respectful towards people, and he's really empathetic. And I think that comes through in what he's saying. And I think that's hopefully going to temper a lot of the drama that might have otherwise sprung up.
I agree. The public speaking part of it, where he has the new rules and he's listening, he's listening to people. I'm hoping he does have some tweaks and to address some of the concerns, because some of the concerns are legitimate. His power to decide if anyone can go beyond the 3 minutes or not. And let's face it, Mayor Kim did the same thing. He just did it in a more backwards way. He just was at times ineffective in stopping somebody, or he just gave up, or he just let them go because he wanted them to go. But he has to be very careful using that, because it's a situation where he could get accused of favoritism, and that could end up being a lawsuit.
But, when it came to Commissioner Moran talking about paying out that settlement to Mike Brandy, the head of the GOP, Commissioner Moran said something like, I forget the exact verbiage, and I shouldn't speculate. It was something like, this is, it was controversial, or it was gross, or he didn't like it, or it was sticky, messy. Commissioner Moran was saying something along those lines. And Mayor Safford was like, yeah, I agree. But it is what it is. So we need to pay for it. As opposed to taking the bait and kind of fighting, which I think is maybe what Commissioner Moran might have thought in that moment. He was kind of like, yeah, I acknowledge and agree. It's
Robin, that exact moment came to my mind too, of not getting into the pettiness and the the bickering and the it is what it is. Yeah, it was probably politically motivated.
Yeah.
We could get into, is that the job of the head of a major party? Probably. It was politically motivated. It's going to talk. This part is, but at the end of the day, that's not what we're talking about. A city council meeting. We're talking about a judgment against the city, and that, do we have to pay that? And yes, we do have to pay that.
I would turn that back on Commissioner Moran. How dysfunctional is this city that Mike Brandy, the GOP chair and an attorney, files a FOIL request and you don't properly respond to it? I mean, that had a blinking bell on it. If you don't get this right, I'm going to sue you. And yet they didn't get it right, and he did sue them. Shame on the city.
Commissioner, I keep calling her Commissioner. Supervisor Madigan is watching, and I'm going to throw this comment up because she agrees with me. Great point, Robin, on the disparity in pay between the elected and deputies. Everybody wants to be a deputy now, as that is where the money is in city government. I agree. I agree.
On that point, and you said it, it's been the same pay for umpteen years. I wish they had the guts to raise it. And if
I know,
you
you guys. It would be so
and even set a schedule for future years, whatever, index it to inflation or something. You're not going to get voted out because you gave yourself a raise on a measly $14,000 salary.
Here's how you do it, right? Here's how you do it. It'd be super simple. And I was kind of surprised Ron Kim didn't do this, because Ron Kim loved putting together a committee when he didn't want to deal with something. Well, this is actually the right moment to put together a committee. You establish a committee, of 3 or 5 people who have, a financial background or have the acumen to be looking at this. And you task them with looking at the salaries and compensation of our elected officials over the years and recommending compensation that, is in line with, 2024 and increases in whatever, cost of living, inflation, whatever. Just analyze the compensation and make a recommendation for where it should be in 2024. And then the city council can choose to adopt that or not adopt that. Yeah. But you put the onus on another body that's independent of our city council. So it doesn't look like the commissioners and mayor coming up with their own compensation. I feel like that's very easily done.
That's getting close to charter change, though, but I know what you mean.
But we always laughed about this. I was even like, listen, just pay us minimum wage. The minimum wage just went, I think, to $16 an hour in New York State. I would have loved to have just been paid minimum wage. We're not even making that. So,
hey guys, does anybody hope that, or a little bit hope that Safford or who's our commissioner of public safety? Safford or Cole do something real fuck up or do something stupid so we can, I just feel like we come across as nonpartisan, but it's very hard to not address these issues and find issues with what Safford and Cole have done so far, right? I mean, I want to stress to our viewers,
in 10 days.
We try to not be partisan. We try to look for the good in everything. We've had all the city council members on the show and, again, treated them very fairly. But, again, when these just keep on coming up, these self-inflicted wounds, and we can't not address it, right?
I totally agree. But, be advised, Mayor Safford and Commissioner Cole, we will come for you the same way we've come for everybody else if we see impropriety and whatnot. But truly, the objective of this podcast has always been to disseminate information about what's happening in City Hall and just locally in terms of news, to fill in the gaps that we're lacking in our local media coverage. And so that's kind of what we're here to do. And I would love nothing more than to have the next 2 years be so lacking in controversy that what we're filling our viewers in on is truly just the substance of the city council meetings and what agenda items are being passed and what, the activity is in City Hall, just in terms of day-to-day business. I would love for that to be the case, but knowing Saratoga Springs, is that going to happen?
Yeah. But back to Mayor Safford and Commissioner Cole, we've highlighted 2 problems in the city right now. The FOIL request costing the city money. And, first of all, they're violating the law first and foremost, but in the end, it costs the city money. And this problem with the on-call pay. You're in office now. Fix them. The 3 of us are going to hold you accountable, just like we're going to hold the 3 predecessors accountable. We're still here. Fix that. You're in office now. We can't blame you for it, but we can blame you if it doesn't get fixed.
Now, am I making this up? Didn't they budget for an additional hire specifically to do FOIL for 2024? Because remember, there was kind of
some chatter by Mayor Kim about that. What the ultimate answer was, I don't recall, but you're more right than not, Robin.
I have to inquire because I thought they did. And I remember there being some talk because he was insisting it had to be an attorney. And I remember thinking, why do we need an attorney to be responding to FOIL requests? I don't fully understand.
Yeah, but I think you hit the nail on the head earlier, Robin, when you said that. The idea that it's a workload issue as opposed to a political issue doesn't. Right. It just doesn't seem to carry water right now. It seems like the information they wanted to get out got out quickly, and information that was damning did not get out. And so
that absolutely is true. But FOIL requests can also be overwhelming. I'm sure at least part of. Totally. I'm sure there's a workload issue as well. They need to get more staff in there. I believe that just because of the way society is and this city is.
But you know what? Part of that, and this is just my observation, part of that is the way that the mayor is going to insist that FOIL requests have to be done. For example, you can entrust your FOIL officer to respond to the FOIL request without approving what's being disseminated. But my understanding is that wasn't always the case over the last 2 years with Mayor Kim, that he would insist on going over all the FOIL results before they were released. And just that, insisting on that, slows down the process so dramatically, and also it just strikes me as incorrect. You should trust your FOIL officer to respond to FOIL requests without having the mayor approve what's going out. That actually seems totally contrary to the spirit in which why we have FOIL in the first place.
The Cuomo administration was known for that. They wouldn't let certain FOILs go out. They would step on the agency's toes on that. I would bet the Hochul administration is probably continuing that. That's just flat out wrong.
Yeah, I totally agree. Quickly, in other news, Dan, I think you covered this on Saratoga Report, but I just wanted to bring it up. It's a complete left turn here. But I listen to the school board meetings because I'm a geek and I listen to all this stuff so we can report back on it. And one of the big issues we've had in our school system, in our school district, has been the teachers and the teachers union. They have been operating without a contract for almost 2 years, which is not good for anyone. And we've been losing a lot of good teachers because of the friction between the school board, or not the school board, but the friction between the district and the teachers union and this lack of a contract. But my understanding, and Dan, I'm going to turn to you for some details, is that our teachers are going to be getting their contract or have potentially already gotten it.
There's what is termed a tentative contract agreement. However, it's really a formality to have it completed because I think it was over the holidays that the negotiators at the table came to an agreement. The teachers came back, was it last week they came back? They voted electronically. They passed it overwhelmingly, I'm told. I don't have the exact details on the numbers of the contract. I heard some, in fact, I'm not even going to throw a number around because I don't have it in the correct context, but I believe it goes through the 2026 school year, 2025-26 school year. It passed overwhelmingly. So the school board tomorrow night the one final step is the school board has to approve it. I'm guessing that's going to be a formality. So good for them. You're right, Robin. It's not good to have those kind of tensions. I saw lawn signs. A number of them marched in on one of the meetings. That's lower level tensions. I get that. It's activism, but it's still not good. That we should treat the teachers with respect and get them a contract. And the fact that it took so long, sometimes that means that neither side got everything they wanted, and that's a good thing, right? That probably means a good contract. They got some of what they wanted, but not everything.
Yeah.
Because they weren't increases. It wasn't just raises. Oh, sorry, Adam. It wasn't just raises. The teachers have to increase pay of health insurance. So management got something, the taxpayers got something, the teachers got something. And I don't have the details to get more in depth than that, but we will probably by tomorrow night. Sorry, Adam, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, hopefully they got their on-call pay.
Funny.
Supervisor Madigan also weighed in saying that they dragged their feet on FOILs because they didn't want them going up before the election. And I think that is a correct observation based on everything I heard and experienced. There was so many political influences that came into play in terms of how they handled those requests, which is just not right. So I'm going to say yay that we don't have Mayor Kim there anymore, because this would be a significantly more challenging issue to address if he were still the mayor, I think, and running things. So
we'll see what happens in 2 years.
I know. Happy for that. Anyhow, we're coming up on an hour. Should we move into our cheers and jeers, folks?
Why not?
Do it.
Why not? What do you guys have for me? Cheers and jeers, folks. Cheers and jeers.
I will go if you want me to.
Yeah, go ahead.
Now, we didn't have major storms this week, but we had storms. So let's acknowledge our DPW employees and probably the police and fire in some cases. Cleanup was quick. They fit getting the Christmas trees out at the same time. I saw a plow go one way and a Christmas tree pickup going the other way. So it's just, they're always good at that during storms. City council last week, we touched on it both earlier as well as last week's show. I'm just happy to see a productive meeting. And I had a congrats to the school board. We already did, and the SSTA. We already had that. And I have no jeers.
Awesome. Adam, tossing it to you.
All right. I just want to cheer former Deputy of Public Safety, Jason Titu, again, on just being the only one to really not grift the system and say, listen, this is not what this was for, and have be a fiduciary of the taxpayer. So cheers to him. My cheers is for Commissioner Sanghvi. She signed a letter essentially calling for a ceasefire in Israel, but not only that, the letter very dangerously equated Israel with Hamas and the atrocities of Hamas compared to the military action of Israel. And listen, if you want to pray for the innocent civilians in Gaza, then God bless you, because they know they need help. But war is hell. War should be avoided at all costs. This war was started by Hamas. Israel has every right to defend itself, and Israel will defend itself. And calling for a ceasefire is essentially, because there was a ceasefire on October 7th, is saying that raping, killing, murdering Jewish women, soldiers, and babies is acceptable. So I have a big problem with that. So that's my jeer. Robin.
My jeer is so freaking stupid compared to that. I don't even know if I want to bring it up, but my cheer is for the Buffalo Bills. Go Bills! AFC East champs. Dan sporting the Bills gear. Freaking love it. My jeer is literally the stupidest thing ever, and it's really more of a jeer of myself. It was freezing cold this weekend, you guys, like freezing cold, cleaning up the house at night. You know those stupid disposable like hand warmer things that you use like skiing?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I grabbed one of those because we have a bunch by the door, grabbed one of those, heated up, and I stuck it in the waistband of my like pajama pants. Fell asleep with it there, woke up. Guess who has burns all over her stomach? Blistering burns.
Oh my God.
I know. I was like, what the what? And I'm sure there's like warning information all over there saying like, don't put this next to your bare skin. But like, who reads that stuff? I don't read that stuff. I just need to be warm. And so now I have this whole embarrassing strip of like 2nd degree blistered burns on my stomach because of this stupid fucking.
Well, I'll tell you one hack for cold weather. Instead of the feet one that have stickers on them, don't put it on your direct skin. But sometimes my kids are going on the cold. Just take one of those things and stick it to their outer, between their t-shirt and their jacket. And then I got a heating pad from CVS. It's exactly that sensation minus the 2nd degree burns. So I love turning it on at night, just warming my little tummy up, my big tummy up. But get a heating pad.
Hey, Adam, I got to ask you to clarify, and I think you're going to want to. I don't think John's post had anything against the DPW deputy, right? I think that was he implied that was more legit, or he didn't have any evidence on that. And I think you said,
that's okay. That's a very good point of the legitimacy of Joe O'Neill. I mean, he had a lot of. Not just him. Everybody seems Democrats, Republicans. Joe seems to be one of those guys who transcends politics and just as good at his job. So yes, there was not criticism for Joe in what John said, and you're exactly right. But nonetheless, I'm sure there was a time that Jason woke up in the middle of the night and he could have as well, rightfully.
Yeah, not taken away from Jason. I just knew you would want to clarify that.
Yeah. I'm right. The criticism is not for Deputy Commissioner O'Neill, but it's more of a praise of, I think, T2 going above and beyond.
Excellent.
But thank you, Dan. All right, we're at an hour, guys.
All right, follow us on all the platforms. Find us on all the platforms. Subscribe to us on YouTube. You'll get alerts when we go live every week. Other than that, we will see you next Wednesday.
Hey, and we made 2 Wednesdays in a row. We want on-call pay for that.
Woo! And next week we have city council meetings, so hopefully we get some information.
Right. Yeah, where's our on-call pay? Bye, guys.